record to the computer. Hopefully. Okay, cool. So we are recording. Yay. All right. So is there anything that you want to tell me before you get going that you feel like would be really great for me to ask you?
No. So we're talking about the 7 steps, right?
Yeah.
7 steps to winning at life, business, or anything. And, it's, they're simple for a reason. And, I could talk about them all day, and I look forward to just sharing my thoughts around those little cornerstones of my success, anyways, and I think can be helpful for anybody.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think they're really great. Okay, cool. So I'll go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Boston Men's Group podcast. My name is Megan Marini, and I'm really excited to have Eric Chasen with us today. He is an author. His book's coming out in just a few months now, and he is a coach, a success coach, and he's a self-made millionaire with a really fabulous story of triumph and working through challenge. And he's hopping on today with us to share his 7 steps to winning at business and anything. So thank you so much for joining us, Eric. We're honored and thrilled to have you.
Megan, thank you very much for inviting me on, for the invitation on. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you as a member as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Happy to be there.
Let's jump right in. Like, talk to me like high level. What is
Sure.
sort of a snapshot of the 7 steps to winning at business or anything?
Yeah, so the 7 steps to winning at business, life, or anything is really, I was asked about, what are some cornerstones for success, and it goes sort of hand in hand with my book that's coming out. Thank you for mentioning. Really, what it is simple steps that whatever compartment of your life that you're in, be it at home, be it at work, be it in relationships. These are sort of principles, simple principles that I live by. That's worked really well for me. At times, depending on the opportunity, and sometimes that's all I had to bring to the party was these, simple little steps. So they've served me really well, and really happy to share them. And people can try them out and see how it works for them.
Now, I really love simple because I feel like the way the human brain can work sometimes is we complicate. Can you talk a little about steps that you see folks taking that may have more complexity and why you've sort of headed in this direction?
Yeah, well, it's a really, really good question. Megan, a couple things about that is, one is what you mentioned, simple. It's, I find that, a couple things along the way is I've, tried to keep that KISS principle there, keep it simple, smarty. And so I learned that way myself, very, fundamentally. And, I try to remain coachable, and I find that I learn through less complex, more simple, approaches and guides. So I try to, when I'm teaching or coaching, training, I try to do the same, keep it simple. So, and I think people sometimes are looking for the magic solution, or, the magic pill, the quick solution. And if it is simple, they think it may not be effective. That it must have something to do with technology or some kind of complex hack or secret formula or some kind of complex solution. And the reality is, when we're talking about interacting with people and needs, etc., it's pretty simple. And the more basic and simple you keep it, oftentimes the more effective it is. Meeting people's needs, that is.
Right. Well, it's easier to remember, to implement, to remember to do, and to access when you're sort of in a high stress moment. Like, you're like, oh yeah, that simple thing, right?
It's a great point.
Well, yeah. So before we get into the sort of meat and the heart of this, which I'm really excited to do, would you share with our audience a little bit more about your backstory and sort of the story that's going into the book, which it's just, I mean, you have such a riveting story. I'm so
Thank you.
excited to read the book. I'm like, I can't wait. Like I was reading the, the 7 steps and I was like, oh, I want to see what the bigger, the
Thank
bigger.
you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking and mentioning. The 7 steps are really, as I said, the cornerstone of, the way I try to live my life in every corner. And it's also there. It's reflective in the book, either by its own chapter or within a chapter. These steps that we'll go through. The book begins in 1999. I was in my mid 30s at the time, and I was engaged to a woman, and she died suddenly, and obviously that was devastating. And I was just part of a new startup, literally just a couple of months into the startup, and subsequent to that, within a year, my mom, who I was very close with and who helped me a lot through this difficult time, my mom passed away, and also within that same time period of 1999 and 2000, because I was struggling to begin with, and then to the compounding of the grief and all that, I ended up having a personal bankruptcy, or filed personal bankruptcy in that time, just to get some relief from somewhere. So it was a real, other than the opportunity with a new startup company, it was a real difficult period for me. Fortunately, I had some really strong mentors. I worked, as you had alluded to earlier in the call. I worked my way up through entry-level positions, not having a college degree and just graduating high school and being a college dropout. I had to start entry level, but I was fortunate enough to have strong mentors and strong leaders that really saw some potential in me, and I was able to work my way up to ultimately being part of getting a small equity position in a startup company, and from there. After doing that for about 2 or 3 years, from building the company up from the original 4 of us, 3 founders and myself, we built it up to a couple of hundred people. And I partnered, this was in Maine, I partnered with my brother, moved back to Massachusetts, and we founded a company called Triton Technologies, which is still in business today. And we started that with some other partners. And our first 3 years in business was very, very challenging. Number of times wanted to make sure we had enough to make our last payroll. That was like a paramount that we would do that. So it was the first 3 years. Like any new company, it was challenging. Our next 3 years were outstanding because of performance, internally for our clients, and because of new business development that was spearheaded by my brother. So he did the outside sales. I did sort of the inside performance on that business, and we had a third partner that was the financial guy. The combination of us and some really, really good people that we ultimately brought on. We were fortunate enough after 6 years in business to actually, sell the company, the majority of the company, to a private equity firm in 2007. 2001 we started, we sold it 2007. We stayed on for 5 years until about 2013, and my brother and I left. And I've been retired ever since, until scroll ahead to about 2013 to 2018. I was looking at other opportunities, startups, franchises. I had no intention of being retired for 5, 6 years. I only planned on taking a year off. And I began saying, hey, I don't know a lot of people like me. I'm early 50s at the time. I've been retired for 5 years. It's like, all my friends are working during the day. My son's at school. It's like, I got to do something here. I hadn't found anything yet to really wrap myself around and rally around in terms of an opportunity. I looked at a bunch. So I began writing a book about my story, thinking that this, adversity to success, from the 1999 to the 2007, could have some value in terms of inspiring, empowering other people. So I began writing away on my iPhone in the notes, and I did that for many months. Sort of in spurts. I would do it, I would put it down, I would do it, and I ended up with some amount of raw material there that became the beginnings of a manuscript. And in beginning of 2019, I began embarked on a coaching training school, really well-known, accredited one. I wanted to combine my my authoring of this book to also helping coaching, training perhaps other entrepreneurs or other people that maybe they were successful at one point but had fallen on tough times, call it life, whether it be divorce, death of close loved, all the stuff I experienced: divorce, death, debt, disease, a bunch of different things that we all encounter at various times of our life. And I felt strongly about being able to inspire and help people that perhaps needed the help at that time. So I came up with the name of the book also in around July of this past year, 2019, realizing that I probably wasn't going to finish the book on my own. I heard a saying that said the most difficult thing about writing your own book is actually ever finishing it, not necessarily having the story. Right. So I hired a professional writer, known as a ghostwriter, and we're about, as you said, we're a few months away from publication, around probably May of 2020, expect to be published. And I'm excited about it because I think it can help a lot of people in their quest, whether it be entrepreneurs or other people that are looking for, both success and fulfillment. The title of the book, which is From Despair to Millionaire, tells part of the story. The subtitle, I think, really sums up, the narrative, which is growing beyond hardship. So,
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think resiliency is one of those sort of magic totems. If you can find a way, because I think when you're cruising and when you've had success and multiple successes, it can be really hard when you lose things. You sort of get cruising. You get cruising with a certain sort of concept of life, and then it can be really hard. And I think that especially men, sometimes seem to be less resilient on certain topics around love. Sometimes you see women that they'll rebound right after a tragic event, where men, sometimes it can take them longer, I've found. And I think that we talked about this recently, didn't we?
I think so, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, maybe it's part not having sort of the skills to process what's going on, not having anyone around you that you want to show any weakness to. So you don't have any buddies that you can talk to that are, not going to judge you. And you may actually have friends that wouldn't judge you, but you're not going to take that risk and tell them that you can't handle it. So there's so many stigmas around getting help. But I think that a book is great. Like, just pick up the book and get in there. And it's just a really great, tangible way to share what you've learned. So why don't we jump into the 7 steps? I don't know if you want to sort of run through high level and give us like a quick snapshot of each, or sorry. I definitely should have put my dog away. So the mailman came. Lita, all right. Come here. Okay. Oh, tough guy. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I can whip through them in a pretty high level,
Yeah, give us like a snapshot story, or however you like.
Yeah. So the overview, there's no real particular order, so I don't want to insinuate that, but it starts with the intangibles. The intangibles, sometimes they're called soft skills. I like to refer to them as the essential intangibles, because oftentimes, you can tell when somebody has a, you know, if they're in good supply or short supply. And what I'm talking about for intangibles is really, you know, attitude, commitment, dedication, enthusiasm, and hard work, to name a few. And what I, you know, when those things are in short supply, it's pretty evident. And when they're in, you know, plentiful, typically those intangibles lead to tangible things such as more measurable things like performance and results. So it's, those things have to be in gear before we can hope for seeing the tangible results. And what I like to think of them as, because as I said earlier, sometimes that's all I had to bring to the table, which was the you know, the attitude, the belief, the commitment, dedication, that they oftentimes can be, you can be competing against somebody, whether it's internally or whether it's in a, you know, another competitive arena that is more resourced than you, is more educated than you. It wasn't hard for me to find that. Is faster, stronger, better looking, but, you know, the whole list. But, you know, the great equalizer really can be those intangibles and those soft skills when those are brought to the table. So as I continue, you'll see that all these are really sort of soft skills, and that's, you know, the intangible sort of encompasses them all. I just named a handful. You know, another big competitive advantage these days, and this is called this number 2 on the no particular order 7 steps. Responsiveness is a huge competitive advantage, and this could be in any endeavor, whether it's, I'm talking, you know, typically this is business, life, or anything. Responsiveness is, the expectations around it today are different than they were even 10 years ago. Somebody sends an email to you today meaning, you know, 2020, that's, you know, we all know that everybody's on their smartphones, you know, as much as they're doing anything else, and they get emails on there. So to respond to somebody a day or two later might have been okay, maybe, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Now it's, you know, the exact opposite of fast and nimble. It's slow and being considered poor in terms of your service and responsiveness. So the expectations today in this age are real time. So even if you don't have a complete answer for whoever, you know, client, a prospect, a, you know, colleague, you could even just drop them a quick note and saying, hey, I'm on it. Thanks for the note. I'm on it. So
I loved this.
And responsiveness, by the way, I found this in business is really a competitive. If you are fast and nimble and responsive, that's already you're at an advantage, because a lot of people, for whatever reason, aren't. That was been my experience. Another one that I really like is, and even saying it, I can't help but do it, and that's smiling. When I was on the phones as a sales agent in, you know, one of the 2 verticals that I worked in, you know, they suggested putting a mirror in front of you when you're on the phone talking. So because people, the prospect that you're looking to you know, sell to or in any case engage with, you know, they can feel that, even if they can't see you like you and I can, they can feel that smile over the phone. This was before video technology was big when I was on the phone. So smiling was essential, and smile brings up your day, and smiling brings up anybody's day you encounter, whether that's, you know, the person in the coffee shop, or whether it's your boss, or whether it's, you know, your colleague or spouse. Smiling is just a natural, and a lot of people think, well, you know, is it phony to smile all the time if I feel like crap? No, because the smile, you know, you don't need to be, you know, the smile itself will bring up your day. You don't have to have a good day. So in other words, even if you smile, it's like a natural, contagious.
Well, it increases the endorphins too. So you're actually helping, like,
Exactly.
dopamine, serotonin. You actually will feel better yourself. So I think that probably one of the critiques might be something like, oh, fake it till you make it. And this whole like inauthentic conversation around just pushing a smile out to make other people happy. But if you kind of reel it in a little closer and say, no, like, I'm going to own my own happiness, and
well said.
Come whatever may, like, I'm going to, you know, take responsibility, if you will, for my own happiness and shine a little more brightly today, even though I'm going through something heavy. Like, that to me is leadership.
I like to say you don't need a reason to smile, the smile alone will give you the reason.
I love that. Yay! Cool. That quote's going out. We're going to use that.
Along the similar lines, and again, in no particular order, something that's been a real lost art out there is manners, actually, how we interact with people, the pleases and the thank yous, and your welcome has been replaced with "have a good one," and that they don't teach that in Manners 101. So again, this is about winning in every corner of your life, each compartment, whether it be at work or at home, or again, and manners was really distance you from the pack. Manners helps you stand out in a good way, because I'm not sure whether people didn't learn them or whether they just don't think it's cool to use manners, but the pleases and the thank yous go a long way, again, in differentiating you from everybody else that's sort of lax with them.
Yeah.
A simple thing of, something that doesn't cost any money, and is being nice to people, from holding doors to, the humility and grace of being nice and kind to people, is a big differentiator today, I think. A lot of things, whether it be around work or otherwise, has to do with being mindful and being aware of self and being aware of others. And, something that's low to no cost, but high in dividends for you and high in dividends for anybody you encounter, is just simply being kind and nice to people. So that's critical enough that I included that in the 7 steps, because I believe that being nice should be the default mode, not, my life and my day and my troubles are more important than the person I bump into on the street. It's, so the default should be not, grouchy, poor me. The default should be nice, kind me. So that's my take on that. The last two kind of go together, Megan, and it's around communication as a top area. There's a saying out there, and as I tell people, you don't have to take my word for it. You can put into any search engine the importance of communication and see quotes from people like Warren Buffett, zillionaires like Warren Buffett, Richard Branson, Michael Dell, where they're talking about, if you want to increase your value in a marketplace or any place, it's through increase your interpersonal communication skills. So whether that's electronic communication, which we do a lot of these days, or any other type of communication over the phone, get better at it, which leads me to the number one communication skill that oftentimes is neglected, and that's listening. Listening actively. So it's such a gift to give somebody to be present when they're talking to you. And I think a couple of the common pitfalls with listening is we don't listen very long. We interrupt others, and we're all guilty of that, because we're like, oh, I don't want to forget that, or I want to make sure I get that point in there. So we interrupt. And the other one is being distracted. I was talking a little bit earlier when we talked about the technology and the smartphones. We're distracted. We're either looking at our phone or thinking about what we're going to say next, and that's not being fully present. So the real gift you can give somebody, and the dividends that can be paid to you and to them, is by being a really attentive, present listener. And that's communication is important, and listening is number one on the communication skill list.
It's great.
So that's the 7.
I love it.
In no particular order.
So what would you say to someone who sort of hasn't really spent a lot of time looking at, I think you mentioned the ego under to be nicer, right? Yeah. Where it's it just takes a moment to say, well, I loved how you said it. This isn't about me. This is actually about being nice as a default. A default setting is to be nice rather than sort of be caught up in your own agenda. And what would you say to someone that So it hasn't really had to think about that yet. Like they're like, well, I was, captain of the football team and everybody loves me and I'm good. It doesn't matter if I don't have to be nice to everybody. I can be tough and and people expect me to be tough and I'm the dad, and, people that are sort of kind of wound up in that sense, that haven't really taken the opportunity to unravel that and say, it might actually feel good to be nice as well as, like you say, have a better exchange with everyone.
Well, I think you make a couple of good points. One, Megan, is, and that's a really good question. And one is the, I think number one is what do they want to, where do they want to get to, right? I mean, if there's nothing, if they're okay with the way they are, and there's no conflict in any corners or compartments of their life, what do they call them now? Containers of their life. That's all well and good. The one thing that people should realize that it's, things such as around being nice, and around, mindfulness and around mindset, which is, those things are big words these days everywhere, mindfulness and mindset. There's a certain amount of grace and humility, graciousness and humility. And it's impossible for graciousness, humility, which allows you to receive a lot of things. And a big ego cannot reside in the same space. So people have to decide, are you going to go with the sort of, the big ego, or are you going to be gracious and humble? Because they can't coexist together in the same, on the same head, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to really, where do they want to be? What do they want to do? Do they want to be the captain of the football team forever? Or, what are they? How is their level of satisfaction in their work life? Where do they want to get to there? Different satisfaction in other areas of their life, and what are they willing to do from a self-improvement perspective, personal development perspective, which involves a certain amount of humility and grace. So
yeah, that's cool. No, I think that's going to be really helpful for the guys. So let me ask you, just to bring it back a little more personally now, like here you are, you're very successful. You have all of these great accomplishments, and now you're setting out in a new direction, and you're heading out to really help people in this new way. And I think of it as like every new stage that you're on, it's like this new platform, this new level, if you will, like in Mario Brothers. You're in a new level, you're going to hit a new challenge, and you're going to have to learn a new skill to compete with the challenge and get to the next level. And what would you say is sort of the challenge now, and what if perhaps maybe one of these 7 strategies or steps, or maybe you're going to be designing another 7 steps after these 2 that will sort of speak to what you're growing through now?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. And it's, I think it's a matter of, as we say in coaching, kind of keeping the gremlins at bay, which is, gremlin is essentially self-doubt. Or at least my gremlin self-doubt is basically the inner critic. It's keeping the inner critic. I'd been retired for more years than I had planned on being. So now there's a shift in, I got to get up and work every day if I'm going to be able to help as many people as I want to help with my book and with coaching. Because it's all pretty congruent to message, my story, which is my book, and my book is my story, and then the coaching that goes with it. If I'm going to help people, I have to get up and I have to show up every day in terms of work. I didn't have to do that for a bunch of years. And so I think it's, I'm not sure whether I'm going to come up with another 7 steps, or, the next 7 steps, or maybe, the next book, which might be called, thought about from retired to inspired. And that is around managing the self-doubt and the inner critic.
Yeah.
Well, the inner critic that manifests itself in self-doubt, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, Eric, how do you accomplish that? And you have self-doubt? I don't know, because I'm human. It was actually a relief recently. It was a relief recently when I heard that successful people, the more successful people, I thought, certainly more successful than me, even, are also, they are the they're the largest candidate for these inner critics, actually, in the what they call is, I know you've heard the term, the imposter syndrome, like, emperor's new clothes kind of thing. You're going to be standing there in the middle of the room, and it's like, oh, I didn't get dressed today. Kind of, everybody's going to realize that I'm not, the imposter syndrome. So it's actually, if you do have that, you're in good company, because successful people, the more successful, the more inner critic you got to battle. So maybe there's a connection there.
There is a connection. And so I just spoke on the inner critic recently, and one of my mentors said something really fabulous right before I got on. She was at a conference with one of her mentors, and she's like, I couldn't believe this woman at the level of success that she's at. She's CEO of this company. And she said, every single day I have to walk through making mistakes all day long in front of everyone. And I fight that inner critic all day. And I just have to continue to push. And I think she's in her second year as the CEO. And it's still a learning process, right? It's like, if she ever said, I can't handle not being, if she couldn't handle not being imperfect, wait, I don't know how many negatives is that. Did I say that right? So because she can handle being seen as imperfect and being seen making mistakes and having to continue on, she's resilient enough to continue to succeed. So I think what happens as someone who has struggled themselves with sort of a negative self-image and negative self-talk, and I think women have a sort of a different way of doing it than men do in ways. But I think most certainly both do. And we're held to different standards too, like the way fathers treat sons, and like you're expected to behave in these certain ways. Like women have these other criteria. You have to do this, cross your legs, like all this like noise that can really kind of take away your freedom of being and your freedom of expression, which I think is innately attached to success. It's like being able to even explore yourself in the world and say, I'm going to try this job on. If you all you can hear is the voice of your mother, you're like, good luck. And I think there's a lot of, on the opposite side of that, there's a lot of data that shows parents that really push their kids to perform, do better long term, right? So they're teaching them some of these maybe hard skills that would marry well with your soft skills, is like to be disciplined, to get up on time, to make your bed in the morning, and I even see like the soft and the discipline together, to respond to an email in an appropriate amount of time, like these sort of behaviors that set someone apart. But it's sort of like allowing yourself to be in the field and not really be that good at something, and not that you're not, but you're new to being an entrepreneur again. So it's like
again. Yeah. Well, it's a rebirth.
It's a rebirth, and I did this recently a few years ago, and it's so great. It's so good for you mentally, physically, and spiritually, because I think you're growing your gray matter again, right? You're like, all right, I got to learn this new thing. It's so good. And I hope that retirement for most people will be as exciting and hopefully as early as yours was. But I don't know if that's what most people will have. But definitely, I hope that your message gets out there and you're able to help as many people as possible. And I would like to help you do that. So tell us all a little bit about, I think first, can folks go ahead and download this, the 7 steps? What are we looking for as far as your book? I know you said May. Is there a website? Where can people go to get to you? And also, how do you work as far as coaching? Just give us like the high level, like what type of coaching?
So as far as accessing the 7 steps, they're accessible on my website I think there is either a pop-up or a banner. I think the banner was recently changed, so it's a pop-up on there if you put your email address in, or if you don't, whatever, or shoot me an email, which is from my website, and I'll send you the 7 steps so you can download them from there. The book, as of now, when I first started working with a writer, we were thinking of February publication, and now it's probably the end of February. The actual manuscript will be done at the end of February is what we're expecting. Editing and proofreading in March, and out to publication around April. And out to publication April, probably more like May by the time it's actually on on Amazon, etc. There will be pre-orders on my website. Under development is, so my website is ericchasen.com, ERICCHASEN.com. And that's up and active and live again. And there's going to be a book landing page on there, Megan, where people can do pre-orders, probably beginning in about mid-March or April. And then there'll be, it's going to be a regular independent, landing page or a connected landing page with book endorsements and a video that's also under introductory video, et cetera. And also on my website is, people can get some more information about coaching and about an assessment on there and some other things, speaking, and they can certainly, again, either calendar it, they can set up a calendar link themselves or follow the link, or they can just simply shoot me a note and, I'll talk to anybody for, off the bat, but as far as an introductory call and see if it makes sense to work together. I enjoy helping people and I enjoy chatting with people. So.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Eric, for being a guest today. I think you bring so much value and we're just really excited to have you.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the time.
All right. So we're going to be signing out, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.